Well, hey there, everybody. Welcome into the Rant. Caden McFarland, Tulsa World columnist Bill Haston is back with us.
Caden.
Bill, good to see you. Jacob Toby over there. Bill, I don't want to say you're grumpy, but maybe not in the greatest of moods because of the Dallas Cowboys today.
I'm in an okay mood.
You're okay. He's okay.
No, because
don't worry about it.
Like I told you, I never for a split second all week thought Dallas would win the
Invested
game.
nothing in there.
For them to stand there all huddled up in the rain and look beaten long before they were actually beaten.
They're soft.
They are soft.
Cowboys are soft.
I can only smirk. I'm sorry.
Jacob, speaking of soft.
Yeah.
Well, you're not going to be
wow, what a shot.
You're not going to be smirking when they get beat about 24 by the Ravens in the postseason. So.
Oh.
Well,
How about
we'll
that?
mark that.
Oh,
and
you
we'll
should
replay that.
mark that.
We'll
Put a
mark
pin
it.
in that. We'll revisit
We'll
it.
mark that. Bill, I want to start off. Best thing you
sir.
saw this week.
Well, really, athletically, maybe the best thing I saw was what Caden's best thing is going to be. But the Grant Calcaterra leading OU onto the field last night, unbelievably unfortunate that his career got cut short because I'm telling you, that was an amazing play too. Holy cow!
I believe, yeah.
So just to let people know,
Maybe the
this
wrong
is not
video.
Grant Calcaterra, obviously. No. This is a punter with the most amazing thing I've ever seen a punter do. I don't think this happened over the weekend, but I saw it for the first time.
That's right.
Over the weekend.
I saw it
so
last
this
night
was
for the
a guy
first time.
dropping a punt in the end zone and then making everybody miss and, going the length of the field, 100 yards. I have no idea what this is. I assume this is high school football.
You know what else?
That's a lot
This
of
is
fun.
not your ordinary punter either.
Clearly.
This guy's a player who happens to
Clearly,
punt.
this guy should be on scholarship somewhere.
By the way,
that said,
I believe we do have the Grant Calcaterra.
You know who else is a
Maybe not.
punter?
Okay.
By the way, Gunnar Gundy's a punter. He punts for Stillwater.
Yep.
And they let him throw it out of
high school, that
punt
happens.
formation. So,
all right, best thing you saw, Bill. We'll start over again.
Grant
Let's roll that
Calcaterra
video. Here you
leading OU onto the field last night in Norman. His career, I knew when I saw his huddle video in high school that he was going to be an all Big 12 caliber player. He was.
In Lincoln Riley's offense. Mm-hmm. 9 career touchdowns, and that fell so far short of what you would have expected when you saw him for the first time. Again, through no fault of his own, retires because of head injuries.
Yes.
Was on his way to an NFL career without a doubt.
One of the
showed
great catches,
perspective in the way he
yeah,
retired.
He did. And one of the great catches in program history, the one-handed catch in the Big 12 game last year. Yeah.
That's right.
Caden, I guess we don't have that video. Sorry about that. The best thing you saw other than that return.
Well, let's go ahead and roll this footage then. No,
This
there's
is
Grant
Grant
Calcaterra. James Washington
I
is
don't
what
know
we
what's
were
going
trying
on.
to tee up. You'll see that on Jacob's Sportscast.
I don't know what's
You
going
saw
on.
it earlier at 5 and 10, but here's Grant Calcaterra coming. I'm glad we did show that video because that was a cool moment last night, no doubt.
For sure. Let's just get into it. OU
Yeah.
beating TCU 28-24 over in Norman on Saturday. 4 touchdowns, total touchdowns for Jalen Hurts. They blow a 21-0 lead they had in that first half. Lincoln Riley said after the game that he thinks they're gaining on playing their best ball of the season. Bill, do you see that coming? Do you see a breakthrough coming? Or do you sort of see the inconsistency playing out the rest of the way?
I mean, there he goes again.
Yeah.
That was an awesome moment.
It really was.
No, I think Lincoln said exactly what he should say.
Okay.
And what any coach should or would say is we haven't played our best yet, especially in light of the fact that they have this maddening trend of either falling way down or blowing significant leads. And
It's been a wild month.
It's been a while. They've got this very impressive November streak that dates to 2014. Undefeated in November games, okay. Here's their last 7 in November, okay. 51-46 at Texas Tech, 48-47 Bedlam last year.
Yeah.
They win by 15 over Kansas, but give up 40 at home. 59-56 at West Virginia. They win over Iowa State a couple of weeks ago by 1. They beat Baylor by 3. They beat TCU by 4. That's an average margin over the last 7 of 4.6 points.
Yeah.
So they're winning.
More than a trend at this point because I hadn't thought about extending it to last year when it was weird wild.
Right. So, I mean, I guess there's a chance that they'll go to Stillwater and put it all together and quit fumbling and quit blowing a lead, or they'll be just more consistently dominant.
Yeah, just put it all together.
Because when they are at their best, there's no doubt.
Pretty spectacular.
when they put both sides together, they're a playoff caliber team. When they don't, they're very vulnerable. And now I believe they're going to win Bedlam because one guy makes his 40th start at the quarterback position, and the other guy, Caden,
makes number 2 in the Big 12.
His second at Oklahoma State and his one and only at Boone Pickens.
Yeah, and we will have a bit of a Bedlam preview coming up in just a minute. All right, with regard to this OU team and what to make of last night, I really have no idea. I mean, they just outgained a Gary Patterson team about 500 to 200. And somehow, our lower third, I think, says they dominate and survive against TCU. I mean, that's what it was. They dominated TCU without a doubt, and yet managed to somehow need to survive the ball. It was, I don't know what to make of it. I think there is more good than bad, mostly because the defense was really, really good. Again, they were great in the second half against Baylor, and they were great for the most part last night. And if this offense can just put it together and do away with some of the mistakes, it's going to serve them really well. You mentioned Final Four team. That's interesting. It's different every year. I think there are 3 teams, and then you draw a line. Somebody's got to be 4th. And the way it's trending, I think it's going to be OU. Oregon lost. That was the team you needed to have lose.
They got help in the
desert. I think
desert.
their resume is going to be better than Utah's. And if you just throw out the helmets, well, OU's always going to win that matchup with Utah. The tricky thing would be Georgia upsetting LSU in the SEC championship game, and I think there's a greater possibility of that than most people are giving credit. That could absolutely happen, and then OU's out. But if you were to ask me right now, I'd say if they went out, better than 50-50 chance. So there's a good chance they'll get their shot. And if you can put it all together like Lincoln Riley's talking about, well, you'll have a chance. And by the way, in order of teams I wouldn't want to face, Ohio State would be 1, Clemson 2, and then LSU, who they might see if they win the SEC. That'd likely be the 1-4 matchup. That's the team I'd feel best about. Lincoln Riley versus Coach Orgeron. I like that matchup for OU. Anyway, all that said, this is who you are. 11 games in. Now it's been 4 games in a row. To me, this is not a team that I expect to just put it together any second now and take their play to another level. I think they'll win out, but I think this is who they are. They're a bit inconsistent. And offensively, when you're asking your quarterback to run 20 or 25 times, well, mistakes are going to be made. He's going to fumble now and again. You know what I mean? Or he's going to miss a read. You can't put that much on a guy's shoulder and expect him to be mistake-free.
No, that's right.
They're really good, but I don't think offensively. I don't want to say close, but they're not what they've been the last couple of years. And that's why you need the defense to be a whole lot better. The defense is playing a whole lot better. So
isn't it crazy, though? You get CeeDee Lamb back, and the passing game was far and away, statistically, the worst it's been all season.
Yeah. They didn't need it, right? I mean, when you run for, 360 yards against Gary Patterson, that's unheard of. I know Chuba Hubbard set a record for an individual player.
Because you held on for dear life at the end. So.
Well, and that's the thing. So you were there, and you came away from that feeling, was it about even in terms of, because for me there were more positives than negatives, but in saying that, I have to admit that there's no way this game should have been 28-24, so something's a little off there. I don't know what to make of these guys, but obviously that's not quite good enough. What we've seen for the last 4 games has not been good enough if you're going to make a real run at the title. Forget getting into the playoff, that can happen, but this hasn't been even close to good enough to take down a Clemson or Ohio State.
Well, I mean, you lose a fumble at the 7, Jacob, and then you throw a 98-yard pick 6. That's 2 touchdowns.
Most debilitating play in football, by the way. Like a goal line interception that goes for a touchdown. I mean, the game is 35-17. If you go in and score there, instead it's 20. I mean, it's the most debilitating play that can happen to a team in football. So it is difficult to survive those. They found a way.
The optics of it are so shocking. It completely flips the field. It changes the scoreboard, and it. It was stunning. I was sitting next to Ivan Maisel of ESPN.
Was he there last? I love Ivan.
Oh, no. I told him about your recommendation on the podcast. He was very appreciative of that.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. Never met Ivan.
So,
makes me happy.
To circle back to the beginning, Lincoln says they haven't played their best football.
They're gaining on it.
He's gaining on it. Well, you know what? December better be more than just your run-of-the-mill bowl prep. They need to go back to boot camp
that's
and
interesting.
get better. Why not? I mean, don't just go through the motions. And I'm not saying they do, but I think a lot of schools do in advance of a bowl. Their December practices are pretty paint by number stuff.
Yeah.
No, OU should use that time to really, really button up their issues.
Yeah.
And then because they have the talent, they have playoff talent. They absolutely do.
Bill, do you think it's hard to count on this defense making the biggest play of the game in the last waning moment? We've seen it against Iowa State. We've seen it against Baylor. Buki, Radley Hiles comes up with just his second career interception on the last big play of the game.
Sure.
Isn't it tough to count on that in the fourth quarter of every close game you're going to be playing in?
Well, the alternative is that you don't get those plays, and then we're not even talking about the playoff now. So I mean, I guess it's dating to the Iowa State two-point play, and then the Nick Bonito pick at Baylor, and then
It was a
Buki-
3-and-out and then
Buki
the
pick
interception last night that sealed it.
Yeah, I mean,
And a second-half shutout against Baylor. I mean, there's been really good stuff in closing these games from the defense. I'm encouraged in a big way.
after you give up 204 total yards, it's hard for me to nitpick very much on the Oklahoma
good
defense
night.
last night.
Yep.
So OU wins that game comfortably if their ball security is cleaner and if their intensity after they get up 21. I mean, good grief, Caden. They were up 21 with at the 13-minute mark of the second quarter, and they got one touchdown the rest of the way at home.
It's hard to fathom.
It's inexplicable. I don't care. I know Gary
you're right.
Patterson's defenses are good, but I've sat and watched Chuba Hubbard run for 223 against Gary Patterson, so I know it can be done.
Yep. We'll talk more Sooners in a minute with our Bedlam preview, Jacob.
For sure. Oh, yeah. No, I mean, let's do it right now, right? Yeah.
Oh, I thought we were talking OSU West Virginia for a bit.
Oh! You wanted to do it separately. Oh, I guess we got confused on that thing. Huh? I don't know. We can. We'll talk OSU, I guess. 2013 win against West Virginia in Morgantown. The defense just allowing 26 total rushing yards, which was pretty impressive for me. Amen Ogbongbamiga leading the defense, 11 tackles.
Hey,
Yeah, there you go.
nicely done.
11 tackles
Play-by-play guy.
on the defense for him. Is this the best four-game stretch of defense we've seen since when, Bill?
Yeah, so this.
I'm going to defer to Caden on this one. because
Here's
he
what I
crunched
discovered today.
A great stat.
I checked this twice, so I mean this is legit. Last year, the OSU defense allowed 28 points or more in every Big 12 game. All right, so it's now been 27
And they
against Iowa State.
They play 9 of them. 9.
That's right.
So
It was 27 against Iowa State, 27 against TCU, 13 against Kansas, 13 against West Virginia yesterday. So that's 4 straight games less than 28. And I thought to myself, how long has it been since they did that? They've never done it in Big 12 play.
Mm-hmm.
And the last time they went 4 straight conference games holding the opponent to less than 28 was 1985. So Jim Knowles is getting her done with, a defense that doesn't have a whole bunch of NFL talent. Like there might be, Trace Ford or something, maybe if you project it, but there's not very much NFL talent.
I don't know about that.
They are playing impressive football
Colby
because
Harvell
they
Pill-
all know what they're up
Colby
to.
Harvell Pill is an NFL caliber guy.
Yeah, no, that's right.
Trey
Good point.
Sterling might be ultimately.
Yeah.
Ogbongbamiga is playing his blankety blank off.
That's a good point.
He is. In fact, he's playing at an all-conference level. He had 11 tackles yesterday, 3.5 TFLs. I mean, so.
Jim Knowles has kind of figured this Big 12 thing out.
That's right. I say they're potentially NFL caliber guys because Knowles has got them playing at a level where you would at least think about that. So no, it's been the most impressive, and I'm going to spend more time on this later tonight, to support this. But I think it's the most impressive in-season recovery that Mike Gundy's ever executed over there. From a certain low point to a better place.
So the low point being Texas Tech.
Well,
probably.
yeah, I mean, to be 1-3 in the league, pretty low point.
Yeah, that wasn't good.
Yeah.
Hey, look.
But to go into Bedlam with a 4-game win streak,
Absolutely.
your self-esteem is restored, and you're going in without your starting quarterback and without
The second best wide receiver in the country.
Who's the first?
CeeDee
Judy?
Lamb.
Oh, CeeDee Lamb?
My
You know,
opinion.
I'm starting to kind of edge toward giving Jerry Judy his due. He's so good. But I'm not saying he's better than anybody. I'm just saying I'm finally coming around to
I
how
like
good he is.
CeeDee's makeup better.
No, CeeDee's a great player,
And-
and Tylen Wallace is a great player. OSU goes in there without a Biletnikoff caliber receiver, without Spencer Sanders. And,
It's all on that guy right there.
And, yeah, no doubt. I mean, and a guy who's listed at 5'11", and he might be 5'9.5",
Yeah.
Drew Brown. So, I mean, the last time OSU went into Bedlam with a backup quarterback because of an injury was 2015. That did not end well. You were there.
Yeah.
OSU loses at home by 35 that night after Mason Rudolph had sustained the foot injury a week earlier. So I don't know what we'll see, because the truth is the last 20, 22 years, Jacob, Bedlam's been a heck of a good series. And really, for the most part, a very competitive series. Like 11 of the last 20 decided by 10 or fewer.
Right.
You know, and
Oh, you almost lost last year.
OSU could have won in 06, 08, 2010, 2017, 2018. Should have won in 13 and 12, and did win in 10 and in 11 and 14. So I mean, is it one-sided if you look at the bottom line? Absolutely, it is. It's a very one-sided series. But has it been on the level at which it's been competitive the last 20 years has been unprecedented.
Sure.
It's been a great series. And I guess the forecast is kind of better now than it looked a couple of days
good.
ago. So
Thank
Caden
you.
was
be
scared.
dry.
Caden was like, it's going to be cold. He was talking to me
all of
about it.
no, it's going to be cool. It's not going to be like cold.
Yeah.
It's not going to be uncomfortable in any regard. It's going to be dry and
Okay.
like 35 degrees.
Final thought for me on the OSU defense before we dive into Bedlam just
Yeah.
a little bit more. One way I like to analyze games is to just line up the four units. You know, so-and-so's offense, so-and-so's defense, the other team's offense, defense, and then rank them. OSU's defense has probably been the best unit on the field in, I don't know, maybe 3 of the last 4 games that they've been in. And I'm going to say that hasn't been the case. Maybe 2013 there was a stretch. Maybe 2009 there was a stretch. Point is, they're able to win with defense coming into a Bedlam game in a way that they haven't been. Now, is that going to be enough against the Sooners, the team that's leading the country in total yardage and has Jalen Hurts, who's got like 50 total touchdowns? Maybe not. But you go in with a fighting chance defensively in a way you just haven't. You don't feel like we got to score 50 points if we're going to beat OU. That's not the way they're going to go into this Bedlam game, and that changes the way you can call plays and everything else. So I don't expect the OSU defense to shut down the Sooners, not by any means, but can they pick up a couple of key turnovers? Can they get a few key stops? Can they hold the Sooners to 35 or less, which has been unheard of in this series very often for the Cowboys? Yeah, I think defensively that's where they are. So it makes this matchup interesting because it's not just, hey, Mason Rudolph and James Washington have to go nuts, or, Brandon Whedon's got to be incredible. The defense can really contribute to winning in a way that just hadn't been the case in this series.
No, there's just been a lot of games, a lot of Bedlam games, Jacob, the last 10 years that have been like basketball-type pacing and scoring. And it's just, I mean, they're good games and they're interesting games, but I mean, 48-47, 62-52. 58-23,
47-41,
61-41, etc. So it's not going to be like that. It's going to be 30-something to 30. I picked already. I had to submit a pick to the world already, 38-34. And Jalen Hurts' experience in that making those 40 starts, that's that 4-point difference.
Okay, so you would be putting money on the Oklahoma State Cowboys.
Well, in regard to the line, absolutely, because
Yeah.
OU's a 13-point favorite.
Yeah, we just talked about it off camera, how they're a 13-point favorite. Big game in terms of if Chuba Hubbard wants to make it to New York for the Heisman, right?
Oh yeah, well it's his final. It's a final.
The biggest stage he'll
game,
have.
but it's his biggest platform.
Yeah.
Before the vote goes in. So absolutely. I mean, what does he need now? Ooh, how did I not do the math?
Couple
on
of
that?
hundred yards.
No, he's
Is it under
below
100?
200.
Okay. Below 200. Excuse me.
To get to 2,000. So I mean,
About 150-ish, right?
170-ish.
Okay.
I think. He was at anyway. We'll do the math after the rant.
Yeah,
but
you're right.
but I mean, if he has a special performance, he will get beyond 2,000 in Bedlam, and that's going to be kind of an interesting side proposition kind of deal. Will he get the necessary yardage to get beyond 2,000 in Bedlam? If he doesn't, OSU probably doesn't win the game. I mean, that's kind of an absolute requirement.
Drew Brown's going to have to be considerably more
Decisive.
more of a playmaker, decisive. Thank you. He's
yeah,
going to have to be better than he was yesterday against West Virginia. I absolutely
held on
think
to the
he
ball
will.
too long.
I think this is just one of those weeks, one of those games. They're going to throw some caution to the wind. They know they have to go score some points. He didn't show me just a ton yesterday, but we know what he did at Hawaii. We've seen the kid throw the ball. I hate that they don't have Tylan Wallace. Gosh, can you imagine if they had Tylan Wallace and Spencer Sanders? How much more we would be intrigue there would be surrounding this game, or at least OSU's ability to pull the upset. But what do you, other than Chuba being really good, the offensive line being great, and Chuba breaking a couple, what do you think Drew Brown needs to do for Oklahoma State to be in this thing until the very end?
At least he got this scrimmage in at West Virginia.
That's right, that helps.
No, well, in effect, that was his scrimmage. But I did notice a couple times, Jacob, it's like, man, you're hanging on to the football too long, and the speed of the game in this league is beyond what you experienced at Hawaii. It just is. And there were several times I thought, you better start rolling, you better start moving, you better get out of that pocket. And I think once he and Gleason and Mike Gundy sit down and watch the video, he'll realize he's got to be more decisive and get rid of it quicker. And
he won't be Spencer Sanders quick, though. They're different in that sense, right?
Oh no, that is a big problem for OSU. Is that you've lost the Spencer Sanders element in the run game.
And that's what OU struggles with on defense.
He could have driven the Sooners a bit crazy, Spencer Sanders running the. But here's the thing: Drew Brown's going to have to pick up some key first downs with his feet. I think he's going to have some success, and you're going to have to scheme this. He's going to have some success on the ground, and they're going to have to get more guys involved than just Dylan Stone and Chuba Hubbard. You got to throw to Hubbard just like they did well against West Virginia. You got to go to Stoner. He's got to be a big playmaker for you, but you got to get some other receivers and maybe the tight end Woods involved in a way that we just haven't seen in several weeks.
With Spencer Sanders, though, you were able to effectively, actually counter the quarterback run game for OU. So you know what I mean? So there's not that imbalance. You don't have that now.
Yep.
So, but maybe they can use Drew Brown in the way they kind of used Taylor on occasion last year.
That's right.
3rd and 4.
Exactly.
Play fake, he keeps for 6.
Yeah.
In fact, they iced the end of the Texas game with a play like that.
That's
so
right.
I could see him doing some of that. He's just not going to hit a home run on those plays like Spencer has the capability of doing.
The defense is going to have to be really good. They're going to have to turn them over some.
Michael Shrimp on Facebook says, OU offense is not at all it was cracked up to be. They shoot themselves in the foot every game. So that's what he says. We'll see if that happens.
Well, it depends. I mean, after 7 games, I think we probably were cracking them up to be something they're not. You know, I was talking on this show about how there wasn't a whole lot of difference between this year's offense and the last couple. I think I maintained that the ceiling was higher for the last couple, but he's right in that the last month has not been as good for a Sooners offense. It has been more mistake-prone as they've taken on more quality competition. So, but I mean, I believe they're still number 1 in the country in total yardage.
Yes,
I believe the points per
correct.
game is still at around 44. I think the yards per game is still out of this world.
Well, it's
they're really good, but they made the kind of big mistakes that just cripple you. You know, yesterday against TCU and against Baylor. They got whipped up front for a half. And so there's been some good and some bad for 4 games in a row. And OU fans have gotten used to just overwhelmingly good stuff going on.
We don't mention nearly enough. Not that we need to just hammer away at it, but it's worth repeating that they lost 4 offensive linemen in the NFL draft. And that's a big rebuild.
It's not just the quarterback, which you're not getting at. The quarterback play's not as good. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, coming off of back-to-back Heisman winners. But you're exactly right. The offensive line, as great as Beatonbow is, as good as these guys are performing this year, there was no way it was going to match up to what it had last year.
For all I know, Beatonbow might be doing the best coaching job of his career to get what they're getting from this collection of guys. And they've been a little banged up.
The way they've
run
the
ball. They've been beyond a little banged up. They've been really banged up all season.
I can't have enough Kennedy Brooks touch. You can't give that guy the ball enough. He is fantastic. And I think the way he works off of these offensive linemen, it's kind of a perfect fit. I think he's an NFL back 1, but I think he's kind of perfect for this offense too. So they're going to be a handful, my man.
And Stevenson in short yardage situations in close games too. He's been good. Caden, am I allowed to ask you for a score prediction, or are you going to save that until Friday?
Well, 38-34 was good. I would. I like the Sooners scoring somewhere between 35, 38, 41, something like that. I think Oklahoma State, it's going to be closer to 28-31. So I think OSU will cover that 2-touchdown spread, but I think OU wins by, let's say, 10.
2 years ago.
I don't feel great about that.
2 years ago, Jacob, Mason Rudolph and Mayfield combined for something like 1,100 passing yards and 10 touchdown passes in this game. This is going to be
Wow.
a much more conventional.
Regular football, as Gundy called it,
There you go, regular
over the
football.
weekend. Yeah, I mean, the way it used to be. I enjoy this much more, by the way. Having
I do
Big
too.
12 games in the 20s and 30s, and this.
Work for the points.
I'm better
Come
with
on.
this, man.
Yeah, work for the points. Okay, Tulsa football losing to Houston over at 11th and Harvard on senior night, 24-14. Their 8th loss on the season. Bill, they've lost 6 out of their last 7. What do you make?
I mean, I was really surprised last night that they were. Now, granted, I didn't watch much of it. It was Garen Ebing and I sat together at the OU game last night, and it was always on my phone. And we would glance down, and I would glance down, and I would see TU give up a kickoff return touchdown, or I would see a pick six go the other way. Otherwise, I mean, it just seemed like defensively Tulsa held up pretty well again.
Yep, really well.
And offensively, pretty stunned to see the run game get, at least statistically, throttled pretty much the way it did at Michigan
Literally
State.
throttled for sure, yeah.
And so, I mean, it's been a you know, the best thing I can say for TU throughout all of this is that they never seemed to quit, and they kept showing up and playing their guts out. You know, even after they were eliminated from bowl contention, but last night to lose to a Houston team that's kind of been tanking at home. No, that was a pretty sobering. That was a failure for TU last night.
The SMU and Memphis losses were far more heartbreaking because, I mean, those were top 25 teams you had on the ropes. You just got to finish the thing. Navy and Tulane were understandable because they were such terrible spots, you know, against teams that will kind of run some option football on you. That's just difficult to deal with. This was uniquely frustrating because they had the bye week. They were coming off of the UCF win and should have had some momentum because they nearly doubled them up in total yardage. If you just do some of the small things, if you just have decent special teams play, you win this ball game. I mean, Houston was basically begging for you to win the game in a lot of ways. This, to me, this is a program, almost nobody who puts on a Golden Hurricane uniform right now has experienced very much winning at all. That's just a fact. Unless you're a senior and you were part of that 10-win team way back when, you haven't experienced much winning, and it looked like a team that hasn't experienced much winning and doesn't really know how to finish and doesn't know how to come up big in those few really crucial moments that come along in each game. To go 98 yards after it had been an uphill climb for a couple of quarters already, to go 98 yards and cut the lead to 17-14 and finally have some momentum, and then to allow a kick return that basically ends the thing.
Sure.
That's losing football. And you lay that, look, the coaches did not have their finest performance last night. There's just no day. Coming off a bye week, facing a team that you should be able to beat, this was a really disappointing performance for a lot of different reasons. I know they feel the same way. I know they're not happy with what they put out there. It could have and should have been much, much better in a big spot, your final home game of the year. And we said there's a huge difference between finishing 3-9 and finishing 5-7. They got a chance to make it 4-8, but they just really squandered an opportunity. And it wasn't like the Memphis and SMU games where we understand because the foe is really formidable. Like, this was just unforced errors, and that's hard to swallow. And I would say that this game in a lot of ways is probably the hardest to swallow for Coach Montgomery, you know, because of everything I just stated. They shouldn't have lost this game.
6 losing seasons out of the last 7. I mean,
It's kind of all you got to say, right?
for a program that for a decade before that was pretty consistently winning and going to bowls. So.
They made progress this year. There's no doubt about that. But they gotta win more to become a winning program again, and to have kids in that program who know what it takes and what it feels like to get over the hump.
Well, you said they made progress. They lost in a better way than they lost last year, but they're still losing.
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, if you're talking about the bottom line, you're exactly right. But I mean, if you just look at, you know, this team and the way they play and everything, I don't think it's even that close to the last couple of years. But that's the shame of it, is the record's going to look identical. I think they are much better than they've been the last couple of years, but the record's going to be identical or very close. You know, it's going to be tough again next year. The schedule's brutal again next year.
Sure.
What are you flapping through over there? You got something to read? No?
I was looking at the lines for the bigger games this weekend. Ohio State's favored by 10 at Michigan. Tulsa's favored by 5 at East Carolina. Bama's favored by 3.5 in the Iron Bowl.
Wow, that's
So,
close.
but OU did have 2 dominoes got pushed out of the way last night
They're in great position.
or yesterday. Penn State and Oregon.
Look, and here's the thing. I think they get in over Utah. I failed to mention Alabama. If Alabama puts it on Auburn and they continue to look impressive without Tua, OU better rack up some style points against OSU and then Baylor. And this is one thing I wanted to get to on the Big 12 championship game, which that matchup is now set. Almost any other situation in recent years, an OU team rallies to beat Baylor, or let's just say a typically middling Big 12 team. That's what Baylor is generally. They've jumped up this year. They're really good. They rally to win that game on the road. I would expect them to show up, a few weeks later in Arlington and just blow that team away. Like, I would expect this Big 12 championship game to not even be close. But Matt Rule changes that for me. I feel like this guy's got an iron will. I think those kids play like he coaches, if you will. They're tough, and I think this is going to be hard. It's going to be hard for OU to put those guys down in the Big 12 title game if they're able to, that's the matchup anyway. But even if they look good in Bedlam, Baylor still worries me. And what they did against Texas after the heartbreaking loss to OU to bounce back 1 week later and basically not give up a touchdown, that's pretty impressive. That Baylor defense is legit. It's for real, and they're going to make life hard on OU again, even with CeeDee Lamb.
I would say that the most impressed I've been with Baylor all year was yesterday.
Yeah.
Because
Same
like
here.
you said, they just got their throats ripped
tough.
out the week before, and they came out and Texas quit in that game. And Texas has got some quit in them anyway.
Obviously.
With that talent level, to have 5 losses.
What's going on down there in Texas? The Cowboys are soft. Texas is soft.
Softies.
The head coach is
Baylor's not.
headbutting guys, helmeted players. He's headbutting guys wearing a helmet. You saw that, right?
Yeah.
You saw that video.
Fake tough guy stuff.
That's not very smart.
No.
Jerry
That
Jones
is
needs
not
to hire
lea-
Matt Rule.
Let me tell you something. That's not leadership. Matt Rule is leadership.
He's good.
I'm with you. I think the Big 12 game is going to be a dogfight, an absolute dogfight.
All right, let's wrap it up. Third
Yep.
quarter's about done. We got
it
big
really?
high school games that we'll talk about next week. Of course, the matchup's going to be Jenks
I
and
can't see the
Owasso
score.
in the
Did-
6A1
did,
final.
Green Bay
and
ever
then
score
Bixby
yet?
Stillwater in 6A2.
No.
What are we looking at?
23-0.
Green Bay has scored. They're in
they
the end
did?
zone.
Oh, they just did.
They're in the end zone.
scored.
Jacob, do you want to say bye to the people? Thanks for watching the rant, everybody.
Thank
We're
you.
waving. Bye. Bedlam week. Love it.